here.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à toutes et tous. Et merci, Julie, pour votre travail et celui de Nathalie et Joanne. Nathalie Provo et Joanne Thompson et toutes les équipes qui sont représentées ici. Vous avez rendu ce jour historique et vital possible. C'est un plaisir d'avoir le parc Gatineau en arrière-plan, un joyau du Québec et de la région de la capitale nationale du Canada. Our country is blessed by an incredible natural heritage. From the rugged Atlantic shores to the towering peaks of the Rockies, from the sweeping prairies to the boreal forests, from the Arctic to the sprawling mountains of British Columbia. Nature is at the heart of Canada. It is at the heart of our identity. Nature strengthens our sovereignty, it supports our economy, it sustains our lives and livelihoods. Nous nous trouvons dans une province où cette réalité est profondément ressentie, où le paysage façonne la culture, la langue et la vie quotidienne. Tout comme les rivières qui se jettent dans le Saint-Laurent, qui sont des voies navigables et des artères vitales pour les écosystèmes. En tant que Canadiens et Canadiens, la nature est dans notre nature. Notre milieu naturel nous distingue du reste du monde. Nos terres s'étendent pour former le 12e plus grand pays du monde, bordé par le plus long littoral du monde. Canada is home to 20% of the world's fresh water, 25% of the world's wetlands, almost a quarter of the world's boreal forests, more than 80,000 species from the iconic polar bears, beavers, Canada geese, to the unique eastern wolf, Vancouver Island marmot, and the Prairie caribou. Nature is also an asset that provides a flow of goods and services over time. These ecosystem services make nature our greatest ally in the fight against climate change. They help mitigate and reduce the severity of climate disasters. Wetlands absorb carbon and they absorb excess rainfall. Forests prevent erosion and floods. Healthy ecosystems reduce the impacts of severe weather that can damage our communities. While protecting us, nature also provides for us, including the very building blocks of life, food, clean water, materials for shelter. And our ecosystems provide massive economic benefits for Canadians. One example, the sites managed by Parks Canada alone contribute over $4 billion to Canada's GDP, and they employ over 37,000 Canadians. Quand on ne protège pas la nature, on ne fait pas un choix économique avantageux. On fait un choix qui va à notre encontre. Now, the very scale of Canada's natural heritage makes our choices consequential for the entire world. And Canada has been a world leader in protecting global nature. Some of you, those behind me, those in front of me, those watching, were at the UN Biodiversity Conference in Montreal in 2022, where Canada helped secure a landmark agreement to halt and reverse global nature loss, the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. As part of it, we and others committed to one of the world's biggest conservation goals, protecting 30% of our lands and waters by the end of this decade, 30 by 2030. This included a commitment to identify critical areas for our biodiversity and ecosystems, and by conserving these habitats, helping to limit the effects of climate change. Pour un pays aussi vaste que le nôtre, protéger 30% de nos terres et de nos eaux est un engagement ambitieux. C'est un engagement que notre gouvernement s'efforce de respecter avec détermination. À cette fin, nous présentons aujourd'hui un plan, une force de la nature, la stratégie du Canada visant à protéger la nature. Today, we're launching a force of nature, Canada's strategy to protect nature. This is an ambitious new plan that invests $3.8 billion of new funds across three pillars: protecting nature, building Canada well, and valuing nature and mobilizing capital. Nature is a force for our well-being. When we're protecting nature, we're protecting Canadians, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the rivers we swim in. That's why today we are putting in place enduring mechanisms to achieve that goal of protecting 30% of our lands and waters by 2030. To get there, we're moving forward with a comprehensive approach. We'll create new national parks and marine conservation sites, new national urban parks, everything that Julie got into politics for, and more, and new so-called other effective area-based conservation measures, which are sites where the land and water can be conserved while allowing some other activities. Creating these spaces is ambitious. It requires significant funding. And we know we can't do it with just public money alone. That's why we'll work with the private sector to catalyze investments and preserve our lands and waters. Now, we're starting investing in our existing national parks to safeguard the extraordinary sites so they can be experienced for generations to come. We all have our connections. Just outside of Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, where I was born, Wood Buffalo National Park has made the preservation of the bison and the whooping crane possible, both endangered species when I was born. When I was growing up in Edmonton, I made lasting memories in Jasper National Park, just as my kids did here in Gatineau Park. So creating new parks and making all parks more accessible will help every Canadian experience the beauty of our great nation, as I have. That's one of the reasons, one of many, why we renewed the Canada Strong Pass for this summer, so Canadians can visit all our national parks for free. And it's why we're moving forward immediately on two new conservation sites. The first is the Winnipeg Indigenous Protected Area and National Marine Conservation Area in eastern James Bay off Quebec. And the second is the Seal River Watershed National Park in Manitoba. Le projet d'aire protégée autochtone et d'aire marine nationale de conservation de Winnipeg permettra de protéger une région essentielle qui soutient les communautés autochtones et où l'on trouve certains des espèces de grands noms canadiens, dont les ours polaires et les belugas. The Seal River Watershed National Park will help protect the world's largest intact watershed. Think about that, the world's largest intact watershed, providing natural carbon storage, water filtration, flood protection, while preserving the habitat of polar bears, caribous, and other iconic Canadian wildlife. It's a good day to be a polar bear in Canada. Souvent, quand nous parlons de conservation, nous pensons à la protection de certaines terres et la restriction de la plupart des activités qui s'y déroulent. Nous devons trouver des moyens de préserver les terres, les eaux, tout en autorisant les activités qui ne les menacent pas. Nous y parvenons grâce à hautes mesures de conservation efficaces par zone. Il s'agit de terres et de plans d'eau que nous pouvons préserver tout en y autorisant d'autres activités. Par exemple, la base des forces canadiennes Shiloh dans le sud-ouest de Manitoba. Certaines parties du site sont activement utilisées par les forces armées, tandis que d'autres restent intactes, ce qui protège ainsi des écosystèmes essentiels. Nous étudions d'autres endroits où nous pourrions appliquer la même approche afin de préserver la nature de manière concrète sans pour autant mettre ces terres entièrement hors d'usage. Comme Julie a dit, le partenariat est au cœur de notre plan. Les peuples autochtones ont une connaissance profonde et ancestrale de l'environnement. Et nous travaillerons en partenariat avec les communautés autochtones pour mettre en œuvre cette stratégie. Nous collaborons avec des organismes de conservation et nous appuyons sur leurs expertises en matière de protection des écosystèmes. Nous collaborons avec les provinces et les territoires afin d'optimiser nos efforts de conservation à l'échelle nationale. Right now, today, about 14% of our land is protected. And through these new parks and conservation areas, we will add an additional 16% by 2030, achieving fully our 30% goal. It's a big day. And as we protect our land, we will protect our waters. We're establishing up to 14 new marine protected areas and conserved areas, and up to 10 new national marine conservation areas. 2 of these areas are in the Arctic. The Saveur-Juak and the Kikitait marine protected areas. Together, they'll help protect the habitats of species that are central to Arctic ecosystems: walruses, belugas, and you guessed it, polar bears. In total, these new conservation areas will add over 12%, bringing us towards our 30% target for marine protected areas at about 28% of protected waters once complete. So we've got work to do to close that gap, and we will close that gap. To restore our waters, we're also removing one of the deadliest forms of marine pollution, ghost gear. That's gear, abandoned and discarded fishing gear that harms marine mammals and seabirds. And I heard about this on the wharf in West Pubnico on Friday, the importance of extending this, and I knew that Minister Thompson had stood up. We're extending the Ghost Gear Fund, which has already removed over 2,500 tons of fishing equipment from Canada's waters since 2020. We're investing as a government in existing efforts that deliver the best results, like the Pacific Salmon Strategy, which protects this vital lifeblood of ecosystems on the West Coast. And we're investing in Canada's Atlantic Salmon Strategy to stabilize and then rebuild wild salmon populations. Une économie forte et résiliente dépend d'écosystèmes sains. Concilier préservation de la nature et développement présente 2 avantages. Cela stimule la croissance tout en protégeant l'environnement naturel qui est le fondement de notre économie. Et notre gouvernement s'attache sans relâche à bâtir une nouvelle économie fondée sur de grands projets d'infrastructure. Nous bâtirons de manière durable en préservant notre environnement naturel. Car la force d'un pays dépend de la santé de ses terres et de la qualité de ses eaux. Et la nature est un moteur pour notre économie grâce à la vigueur de ses écosystèmes. Nous devons adopter des méthodes de construction qui favorisent nos efforts de conservation tout en créant et en protégeant des aires destinées à la préservation de la nature et de la faune. Through more comprehensive mapping of our nature, which is part of this plan, we'll have a better understanding of the biodiversity and carbon sequestration capacity across Canada. That improved mapping will create predictable pathways for project approvals and catalyze investment in conservation. Nature can be a force for good that mobilizes private capital that protects the environment. I know this from my work as the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance, when the private sector incorporates reducing emissions and protecting nature in their value chains, they have greater incentives to invest and are more motivated to reduce practices that result in habitat loss and pollution. Au Canada et partout dans le monde, des modèles de financement novateurs voient le jour pour favoriser les investissements privés en faveur de la protection de la nature. Afin de tirer parti de ces outils, nous mettons sur pied un groupe de travail d'experts sur la comptabilisation du capital naturel et le financement de la protection de la nature. Le groupe de travail définira comment mesurer la valeur de la nature et étudiera les moyens de la considérer comme un actif qu'il faut protéger, une richesse dont nous ne pouvons pas nous passer. C'est en suivant l'état de nos écosystèmes avec la même rigueur que celle dont nous faisons preuve pour suivre les rendements économiques et financiers que nous jetterons les bases nécessaires aux décisions d'investissement visant à protéger les milieux naturels. So, our national identity is rooted in our country's magnificent, diverse landscapes, like the one behind us. As the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation poet, Elder Dr. Duke Redman observed, the spirit of the people is equal to the power of the land. Ce dont nous avons hérité en tant que Canadiennes et Canadiens est extraordinaire. Toutefois, nous avons une responsabilité, une grande responsabilité, celle de protéger ces richesses. C'est d'être les gardiens des terres et des eaux dont nous jouissons pleinement. Il s'agit d'une responsabilité que le nouveau gouvernement du Canada attend d'assumer avec une détermination sans faille. Merci beaucoup. On prend des questions.
Merci, Monsieur le Premier ministre. Nous allons maintenant passer à la période de questions. Nous allons faire 20 minutes. Première question, Nick.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Thank you for taking our questions. I just want to pick up on the incentives portion of your speech that you just touched on. During the Liberal leadership race last year, you promised a number of incentives for Canadians to go green. Specifically, from your campaign page, you promised to introduce home retrofit incentive programs, recapitalize the Greener Homes Grant, boost the heat pump program, and introduce mortgage discounts for Canadians who make energy-efficient retrofits. And although the government has introduced the EV rebates program earlier this year, those other measures that I just mentioned have not materialized. And so my question is, why hasn't the government delivered on those? And are you still committed to those specific measures?
We're still, I'll answer the second part first, still committed to specific measures. And one of the things that we're doing as part of alignment of government activities, you prompted this announcement, which is transferring some of those responsibilities to environment and climate change, so under Minister DeBrusen, so that we get that direct alignment. In many cases, those programs were under Natural Resources Canada and move over to that. And, you know, if I may, one of the things we're really focused is, and you saw it with the EV mandates, the associated charging infrastructure, the other changes we made there, is making sure that when we refresh these programs and rebring them, that they're going to be as impactful as possible. So part of it is just the work in order to deliver that. But it is a priority, and I appreciate the question. Thank you.
Prochaine question.
Oui, bonjour, M. Carney, Laurence Martin, Radio-Canada. Je vais vous amener sur un autre sujet. Okay. S'il y a un référendum sur la souveraineté au Québec, et que la question est, voulez-vous que le Québec se sépare, oui ou non, du reste du Canada, et qu'au moins 50% plus un des Québécois disent oui, est-ce que pour vous, c'est une majorité suffisamment claire pour reconnaître un Québec souverain?
Le focus du gouvernement est de fédéralisme coopératif avec le Québec et des provinces, et on travaille dans une étroite collaboration avec le Québec. Premier point. Deuxième point, et c'est un moment où le pays devenir, selon moi, selon des sondages, selon les efforts, de plus en plus unifié. Et un aspect, une valeur québécoise, qui est aussi une valeur canadienne, c'est la responsabilité de protéger la nature et la valeur de la nature. C'est au sein de, selon moi, c'est au sein de l'identité québécoise et l'identité canadienne.
Oui. Je vous entends, M. Carney, mais en même temps, la possibilité d'un référendum est quand même réelle. Et je pense qu'il y a beaucoup de Québécois fédéralistes et souverainistes qui aimeraient une réponse claire. Donc, est-ce que 50% plus 1 pour vous, c'est suffisant? Parce que certains de vos prédécesseurs ont dit non, il faudrait que ce soit plus.
Madame Martin, nous vivons dans une démocratie et avant, la première réponse claire sera dans l'élection du Québec en novembre.
Merci. Donc, vous voulez prochaine question?
On attend.
Prochaine question. Globe and Mail?
Oui.
Prime Minister Stephanie Levitt's The Globe and Mail. I'm wondering, do you still intend to fulfill the Liberal government's promise to get daycare fees down to $10 a day on average nationwide? And if so, by when?
Well, first off, we are standing foursquare behind the importance of affordable national daycare. It is a shared responsibility with the provinces. We work with the provinces in order to do that. So it's an answer that's provided jointly with the provinces. It's a shared jurisdiction, a shared fulfillment of that.
They say without more money from you, it's not possible. Is that goal dead?
It's a series of negotiations and discussions, and they're ongoing. And we're in a position where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of families are saving because of the child care program. Saving, and it depends on the province, but saving anywhere from the high single-digit $1,000s a year to $25,000, $30,000 a year in child care fees.
Next question. Global News.
Prime Minister, do you agree with the 2021 House of Commons vote that China's persecution of Uyghurs is a genocide?
Look, there are fundamental issues in terms of China's treatment of the Uyghurs in the past, and they've been rightly called out.
Do you agree that it's ongoing?
That it's ongoing. There are serious issues that remain, which is why I've raised human rights issues with my Chinese counterparts in our engagement, and it's why it's essential in our dealings with China and commercial dealings with China that we have transparency in terms of where goods come from, the treatment of those workers, and that they fully meet our standards in terms of child labor, slave labor, human rights.
Next.
En français, est-ce que c'est un génocide juste sur est-ce qu'il y a un génocide contre les Ouïghours?
Il y avait des enjeux sérieux dans le passé. On suivi de près la situation en Chine. J'ai soulevé les enjeux des droits humains avec mon homologue chinois. Et c'est c'est important, c'est essentiel que tous nos affaires commerciales avec la Chine respectent les standards fondamentaux du Canada. Merci.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, Boris Proulx, Le Devoir, Israël occupe militairement le sud du Liban.
Oui.
Selon vous, est-ce que c'est une occupation illégale de même nature que l'occupation illégale de la Russie en Ukraine?
Premièrement, le Canada condamne l'occupation du sud du Liban jusqu'au début de l'opération. Ça, c'est clair. C'est le moment où il faut avoir un cessez-le-feu au Liban, parce que pour plusieurs raisons. Il y a plusieurs raisons, y compris que le gouvernement du Liban a banni Hezbollah et essaie d'arrêter les activités d'Hezbollah au Liban. Alors, le gouvernement du Liban, il y a des enjeux qui concernent l'intégrité territoriale, la souveraineté du Liban, les droits humains, mais surtout tout cela, il y a des enjeux pratiques. Le gouvernement du Liban essaie d'arrêter les activités terroristes d'Hezbollah, qui est, et je dis tout cela parce que c'est un des objectifs du gouvernement d'Israël. Alors il faut avoir un cessez-le-feu, selon le Canada, pour toutes les raisons, y compris les raisons pratiques.
Mais ces raisons-là rendent l'action militaire légale, selon vous, ou
non,
acceptable?
C'est pas illégal. C'est pas légal. Pardon. C'est pas légal.
Can you repeat that in English, please, sir? On Lebanon, just the government.
Right. It's an illegal invasion of Lebanon. It's a violation of their territorial sovereignty, integrity, and sovereignty. And the point I was making as well, from a practical perspective, the government of Lebanon has banned Hezbollah. It's taking action. It's trying to take action against Hezbollah and their terrorist activities and their threats to Israel, and that is the purported justification for this invasion. So we condemn it.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Jordan Gowling, National Post. The deadline for agreements on carbon pricing in the Pathways Project through your government's MOU with Alberta is tomorrow. Are you on track to meet that deadline? Given Premier Smith's comments in Houston last week, she said there might be a delay.
Well, I'd say a couple of things. One, and Premier Smith and I had, with colleagues, very constructive conversation yesterday afternoon. So we're continuing to move forward. I'd note that we have made a series of progress. The cooperation agreement that was signed and announced a couple of weeks ago, the agreement on methane, which was announced last week. We're continuing to move forward, so there's a lot of momentum. Will we perfectly make Premier Smith's birthday? And I'd like to take this opportunity to wish the Premier of Alberta happy birthday tomorrow. And everyone who would like to send cards, please do. And I know she's thrilled about this announcement as well. But will we perfectly meet the first? Not necessarily, but do we have momentum? We're making progress? Yes. We'll get the right agreement at the right time, but I anticipate soon.
Sur l'échéancier, sur le fait que vous alliez peut-être avoir du retard pour la...
Oui, premièrement, il y a un rythme. Un momentum, un rythme dans les discussions. Il y a de progrès entre le gouvernement du Canada et le gouvernement d'Alberta, un accord de coopération, un accord sur méthane, beaucoup d'autres progrès mais peut-être ça va prendre. Et j'ai eu une conversation, une discussion très constructive, très longue, très constructive avec la Première ministre Smith hier. Alors, il se peut qu'il prise plus de temps, mais pas trop de temps. Okay.
And what are contributing kind of to those delays?
No, it's it's very. If I may, it's a very. It's a complex, very important set of negotiations. Discussions. We want to get it right. We want to have a framework that works. And as I say, we've made a series of progress. These are constructive discussions, and we're just working it through. And look, we'll do our best to meet. Do I think we're going to announce an agreement tomorrow? No, I don't think we're going to announce an agreement tomorrow. But I feel very good about the progress and the state of the discussions. Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister. Tom Perry with CBC. Today's the deadline for gun owners to make their declaration as part of the federal buyback program. Public safety says I think it's about 57,000 guns have been declared, but you budgeted for up to 136,000. So I'm wondering, what do you think about the uptake? And are you worried that, given it isn't as high as what you budgeted for, that there's still going to be a lot of prohibited weapons out there?
Well, first off, I'd like to salute those who've worked on making this possible, and those gun owners who've brought forward their weapons for compensation. We'll evaluate the full program and next steps. There's time between now and when the law fully takes effect later in the fall.
But are you what do you think about the uptake, though? I mean, is it as high as you want? It's not as high as you want it to be.
Well, it's not as high as as the estimates of the numbers of by definition. I mean, your figures are. I have the same understanding of the broad figures, so there's obviously a gap there.
Thanks.
Next question, Abigail.
Abigail Beeman, CTV News. Are you considering cutting the federal gas tax to help Canadians at the pump? And at the same time, if you get a majority government in 10 days, are you considering proroguing Parliament, which may get in the way of any potential legislation?
Okay. I'm going to answer the second one first. Absolutely not. It has never even entered my thinking, the possibility of that. So I couldn't have been more surprised to see a suggestion that was under consideration. Alors, en français, c'est aucune chance. On va faire une prorogation du Parlement. C'est pas une idée du gouvernement. Monsieur, the House, I'm sitting here, the House leader would personally, he wouldn't be happy with me. I don't want to suggest that he would do anything more extreme. But no, we are... En français, le gouvernement travaille avec le Parlement. Nous sommes we are absolutely focused on working with Parliament getting legislation through Parliament, adjusting legislation where it needs to be, where it's better informed by the discussions in Parliament, where we have to make compromise in order to do it. And we've shown that. We've shown that consistently. And I think what we've seen, certainly in the last 2 months, is the real progress that we're making across a range of bills in crime, the Budget Implementation Act, other aspects. So there's no question of that. And I've already forgotten the first part of your question, Abigail, so sorry.
Gas. You said a few days
yes.
ago that you are following it closely.